5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just gonna wait to get the notifications here. Everybody's syncing up and syncing in. How we doing? Yeah, it's still loading on our side.
No.
All right, perfect. What's up, everybody? This is Sonia Gomez coming to you live from Colorado. I'm super excited to be here with you guys on another bonus broadcast of Legalize It, Don't Criticize It, the place to be for cannabis, hemp, CBD, and the new and emerging business opportunities that are opening up for people just like you and me. This is such an exciting time for us as we are pioneering this industry forward. And I'm so excited to feature our guest, Daniel Weiss, who is the director of IT at Good Meds. And this is really important for you guys to take a look at, because in order to be involved with the industry, you do not have to be directly touching the plant. You can apply your existing skill sets or educations, past and present, to this industry in order to profit, which is really, really amazing and something to pay attention to. So for those of you guys who have unique skill sets or certifications and you want to learn how to get involved into this industry, this is the interview for you. Now, as you're popping on, you guys, let us know where you're tuning in from. What state are you in? What city are you in? Why are you excited to be here? And what questions do you have? It is our mission at Legalize It, Don't Criticize It, and medicalsecrets.com to make sure that you get the truth about cannabis and hemp CBD to change the way that you feel and function every day on the medical side. But we also want to empower you and make sure that we answer your burning questions when it comes to the business and investing side of things as well. So have no fear. Post your questions in the link below. And if you want to continue to get notifications from us when we're going live, doing interviews like this, or giving away doing giveaways or offering product coupons from different companies that we're interviewing, go ahead and click the link inside of the description and I will send you a private message to make sure that you are connected with us. So let me say what's up to some of you guys who are popping on here before we get started in today's interview. We got Darlene in the house. What's going on? Yay, yay. How you doing? Bruce, how's it going? Sharon, what's up? Sharon is the head of our moderators, and I'm so excited that she's on here. April is on with us today. Sebastian, what's going on? We got Sissy Maxwell in the house. Tom is in the house. Florida, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York. Man, we got all the East Coasters coming in, so that's awesome. Good afternoon, Stefan. Thanks for being here. Hey, you guys, remember that to like and share content like this as you are getting value from it. With your help, we've been able to impact over 27 million people's lives around the world, and it is our mission to continue to help people get the contact with the information, the relationships, the resources that they need to make massive change. So with that being said, what's up, Bobby and William? Everybody give a nice warm Legalize It, Don't Criticize It welcome to our guest, Daniel Weiss, and my co-host, Nicole Buffon. Thanks, guys. How you doing?
Peace.
Good, how are you?
Everybody. Peace and love. Hi, everyone.
Doing really good. Daniel, we're so excited to have you on. You are actually playing a leadership role in one of the companies that I was pioneering this whole industry with. So I'm really excited to hear what you guys have going on. For those of you who do not know Daniel, we're going to just give him a moment now to introduce himself. Daniel, why don't you tell us who you are, where are you from, who are you working for, and what are you doing in the industry?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me today too. Really appreciate the opportunity just to share kind of a little bit of that background. Originally from New Jersey, I did go to college in Chicago at Loyola, kind of a political science background. I slow rolled it into the computer science stuff. Started out in retail banking for a number of years, assisted a lot of their web development in addition to just the front of the house customer service and selling checking accounts, that kind of stuff. So kind of interesting to come to a point in my career there and decide, well, you know, cannabis was a natural fit and easy transition actually at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
That's something I have not heard, somebody coming from banking to say that cannabis was an easy and natural transition.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit more about that. The banking is not allowed in the cannabis industry. We are not normal businesses. So how was it a natural and easy transition for you?
You take it at face value, and sure, it could be hard to kind of see the linkage there. But if you take a step back and you look at the two business models just on their face value, what is banking? We have a highly saturated market. with lots of different players. Pricing is incredibly sensitive. Customer service is incredibly valuable. And you have a very tight regulatory framework, which adds to your bottom line and is a constant consideration and actually the driving force of the business in a lot of ways. You could just as easily apply that same statement to cannabis at this point. It is a tightly regulatory environment, very heavily saturated. Pricing is bottoming out, so customer service and quality and all these other things, branding, matter more.
So what exactly do you do, like within the industry in linking the banking with the cannabis? How does that work?
Well, I think if you have a very disciplined approach from a data analytics perspective and business analytics perspective, business metrics, they apply no matter what industry you're looking at. So how long somebody's in the storefront, the average transaction cost, the average items per ticket, all these things are proxy indicators for something, right? It's telling you something about the business and something about the activity taking place within the business. So if you're coming from like where I'm coming from, I mean, loan to value ratios and credit scores and things like that very easily poured over to plant count limits and potency and residuals. So it's just, if you're looking at it just very agnostically and objectively, it really is kind of the same stuff.
So what I hear you saying is if you got that stone cold business face on, you can definitely recognize the investment opportunity and involvement that comes along with being in the green rush. Now, let me ask you this. Originally an East Coast boy, Jersey boy, when did you come over to Colorado? Was it the cannabis industry that brought you here? And have you always been out of the cannabis closet, or was this something that you were kind of like, yeah, I'm in Colorado, I can talk about my interest here?
Definitely. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest parts about moving over is I felt in the banking industry, I mean, coming from '08 and seeing what the mortgage crisis did to this country. And essentially I was working, doing everything that I was doing as a young professional for lack of a better phrase, the 1%, their bottom line. And I see cannabis as being such an equalizer. If we do this right, I think the IT argument is that if you're a small business and you're wanting to stick around for the long haul, you need some of these principles. And so, I'm just really adamant that if we're going to do this decentralized market the right way, where it's going to be empowering for the long haul, where even if the Philip Morrises of the world or the big players want to eventually come in and squeeze the market, you still have some room for action for some of the smaller players. That's what's really going to make this a more egalitarian effort than not.
Totally.
What's the right way of doing it in your mind? What would be that right formula in order to make sure that it's an inclusive market and not an exclusive market?
I mean, doing things systemically and structurally, putting caps on things, never an easy way to structure it. If you look at the Colorado market, though, what they've done, they have made it a limited selection of licenses, but they're doing things. The MED is doing things to monitor the health of their licensees and people who are on the bubble. I mean, they're responsive to that and they're watching their bottom line. They have just as much of an interest as everybody else to keep that market diversified and varied. So, I mean, we see it. Prices are bottoming out. Brands are getting consolidated, eaten up. I think the next 2 fiscal quarters are going to tell a lot of the story as far as who's going to stick around and be a long-term player and who's not. But you just look at that whole schema together and you've just got to play at the margins of everything.
So talk to me a little bit about Good Meds. What is different about, so again, I knew Good Meds back in the day when it was just starting and establishing itself in the industry. But I'm curious to know what today looks like for Good Meds. Tell me a little bit about your company. What do you guys stand for? What's your biggest mission? And how are you guys doing right now?
Definitely. I mean, to be one of the first licenses and then to still be around. I mean, that's the mission, is to still stick around and to not have to kind of sell out the culture or the values either in order to do so. And if you look at kind of some of the biggest initiatives that we've taken on, a lot of the stuff on the technology side, we have a company intranet now. I mean, just the value to the business with a high turnover industry, to have that business intelligence retained in that schema. That's been a big push of ours. But more outside focused, Good Meds Cares is a more recent initiative that we've taken on, where, I mean, the homelessness need here in Denver is real and ongoing. It's not going anywhere. And I mean, if you're talking about coming out of the closet as, you know, a cannabis user, and all those years of being kind of optimistic youth and talking about how this plant could save the country or save ourselves and all the good that it could do, and then to kind of grow up and a lot of us not really taking the lead there that I feel we should be, being in the space that we're in, I think we could do more. So I think that those two things definitely.
Okay. And then how about when folks are, we talked about the longevity of a company establishing themselves in the industry, how it's definitely been a challenge. We've watched this ripple effect in the industry of folks, you know, coming in, getting their licenses, spending their life savings, applying all of their, you know, ninja tactics to what they know at starting a business. And cannabis is quite evasive in the sense that, like, because of the regulations built up around it, we have not been able to approve everybody. There's a rumor going around that says that minorities applying for licenses are more challenged in keeping or having their licenses. Do you see that? And when, I mean, you're heavily involved in the industry, what are you seeing in the ratio of minority-owned businesses versus non-minority, if you will? What's that ratio look like? And what do you think is the determining factor of somebody who, like you, can hang on to the license and build their reputation and establish themselves as a contender in the industry, versus the newbies who are coming in and dropping out, potentially losing everything?
Definitely. Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to answer that. Anecdotally, I would say that's the importance of the MED, their position, and getting all that information public, right? And following up from the consumer and the public good perspective, that we have to be kind of watching them and making sure what might have potentially happened in Ohio when they were first getting going. I just kind of remember that was kind of a little bit of a niche kind of situation and very centralized, and the absolute wrong way to go about it. So when we talk about, you know, how this market could really look and be beneficial to the entire country, it is where there's more players in line and where it is more of a redistribution thing than necessarily an investment thing. Now, clearly, the country is, I mean, we're dealing with the schema and the structure of this country that we're dealing with. So there's lots of historical problems and there's lots of current structural problems, as we're all well aware. I guess that's my best answer. Those players need to be in it. It needs to be very equal in that regard, and we just have to continue to watch it.
And so would you say that that's maybe your mission, your company's mission? You know, what do you all focus on trying to make sure that you are as inclusive as you possibly can be, and being a part of the industry, including, you know, recruiting clients and getting clients in that way?
Totally. I talked about survival, but you can survive. You can also survive the wrong way. You can also survive the right way, and you can be a steward and a leader. And I think when we're talking about survival within a heavily saturated market, within all the market realities that we have to deal with, it is what it is. We can cry about it all day, but we have to survive. We have to find a way.
Right.
But we also have to do it in a balanced way where it's not cutthroat. We're sticking true to our values. And I mean, there's not an easy answer there, because I think it's kind of put down to every decision you make in the course of business, right? You can't really fake this stuff. You're either authentically for these things or you're not. And so, you know, when you're making that hiring decision, or where you're deciding where to place that billboard, or when you're deciding where to put that storefront, or when you're deciding what products to put out, which products to focus on, that there's politics and biases and kind of nuance built into each one of those decisions. So again, I think all the stuff we're talking about, it could be banking, it could be cannabis, it could be credit card companies, it doesn't matter. And you see that we're still in a country that believes anything goes and nothing matters. And I think that's the problem. When we start caring more for each other and realizing that this is an opportunity to kind of display some of those characteristics, that's where the cynicism kind of falls away, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
You spoke a little, sorry for interrupting, Nicole.
No,
Um,
it's okay.
you spoke a little bit about Good Meds Cares, and I want to just dive into this for a minute, because something that I've recognized is, cannabis becomes the what, right? It's what everybody wants, it's what everybody needs, it is the what that people are chasing, right? But there's a why behind every company and organization that helps them to stand out and become recognized, trusted, and respected into the industry. I want to know about the Good Meds Care campaign. I want to know about Good Meds' higher mission, higher purpose. Why do they do what they do, and what makes you so passionate about being involved with it?
I'd say that most of the management team here are students of history. And when you look at this country, historically, it's never been a very socialistic country. It's always been, the church always had a role there. Communal organizations always had a role there in terms of supporting the least of these, right? And we see other advanced democratic countries go about it a completely different way, where those services are provided for by the state, right?
Right.
We don't need to go necessarily down that whole conversation, but what I'm just trying to say is it behooves us as business leaders and leaders of these various organizations that have a lot of power in the community. We can effectuate change by making a few simple decisions, adding a canned food drive to a current promotion. That's a simple thing that's not going to really eat our bottom line. It's another couple of lines on an advertisement, and we can use existing resources and infrastructure to coordinate it. Why wouldn't you do it? And you look at other companies in a country that lacks universal health care, that lacks basic social security nets. If we can hook people up with canned goods, or even just take it our main business model and product and what we're doing, selling people medicine that they need. I see it every day in the stores. People talking about the medicine that they're getting, the relief that they're getting directly from it. That's a moral mission. That's beyond anything having to do with revenue or dollars and figures or business trends. That is, what else are we doing here if we're not trying to help each other?
That's right. That's right.
I think a lot of people and not just in this industry, but in general, I think we're right in this pivotal point here in the cannabis and hemp space, where we can either choose to hold true to that ideal, or we can succumb to what has happened. I think in a lot of industries, people like to wear the cloak of saying this is our bigger mission. This is that we're driven by our morale, so on and so forth. But when it comes down to it, the decisions are being made in a way that doesn't necessarily serve its local communities. And when I was operating a cannabis company, I had the most ridiculous result when it came to a food drive. And it's not the same now, but let me just share this with you. We did this incredible food drive. It was called Cans for Cones. And I think it inspired a lot of the cannabis companies to start doing the same thing. We ran a campaign called Cans for Cones, put out some press releases, and we raised over 10,000 pounds in food, and gave away just a meager amount of cannabis in exchange. So if somebody brought in 5 cones or 5 cans or whatever, they'd get a half-gram joint pre-roll, and it would show a certain value so we could track it and all of that stuff. We started to call around because we were like, oh my God, we got 10,000 pounds worth of food, and people dropped off jackets and clothes and all this stuff. And we called the biggest organization that fed the most homeless people, and we were like, we have food and clothes and all this stuff. And they were like, okay, awesome. What's the name of your business? We were like, Urban Cannabis. And they were like, cannabis? Sorry, we can't take your food or your clothes or your contributions. And that's always left a crazy chord with me, because I'm like, man, you guys wear the Christian cloak, but you don't want to, hold true to the ideals. And so I think it's a great responsibility and which is why I'm so excited about how you started this interview talking about Good Meds Cares and that kind of campaign, and, the why behind what you're doing and the social impact that it has, and how you as the director of IT can kind of track and participate in the results that your company is creating in the community. And I think that's going to be the thing that makes the biggest difference for this industry. Not to go off on a tangent, but just thought I'd share that with you because, it's been crazy. In the industry. And I can only imagine that as more money, more competition, more capital comes in, that we are going to be confronted with this. Do we stick to our moral code, or do we succumb to, the status quo?
And I'd love to make a point on that. I think that existential question is the same existential question the country's facing. I don't see a difference between the existential question that we're facing in cannabis about what you just said. Do we go a humanitarian, a humanistic route, or do we just continue business as usual? That is the same question that is posed to the country right now. I mean, look at the president. I think that's business as usual, Do we want to change gears? And cannabis and these midterm elections, I think it's a huge opportunity for the country to change course.
Yeah, I reside in Georgia, and what's happening in Georgia right now with the conversation between the governor candidates is that if it wasn't an issue before, now that we're through the primaries, it's an issue. People are talking about it, and they're forcing the candidates to talk about it. And I know that we're not the only state experiencing that. So you're right. It's absolutely important. I mean, this is a global issue, not just a United States issue. It just so happens that the United States is behind the 8 ball with this particular issue. And so, and I think that's kind of what I wanted to ask about. Where do you see the global effect of legalization for this plant? I mean, that's really the impact that we're talking about, right? Not just for the United States, but what is it on a global scale for this company and for you?
Let's talk about that. What has marijuana been used for globally for the past 70 years as a means of repression, as a tool of power to repress powerless entities and groups? And so waking up from that nightmare is how I would kind of describe where we're at now. And further, I think it's very interesting that not only are we waking up from the nightmare of a plant, just think a plant being used in that way, but a plant that is actually very good for you, that, the science is early on the endocannabinoid system and all the interplay there, but we know there's an interaction. We know that this plant can heal. We know that there's all kinds of properties to it that leave a lot to be liked. And so the nexus there, I mean, to unpack that and what the job historians have in the next, 100 years to really think through what's happened over the past 100 years. It's, I'm glad that's not my task, but it's definitely interesting to think about. But that would be my answer, is that it really represents a coming up for air, almost like coming to our senses.
That's right. Yeah.
Let me ask you this.
Awakening.
Since you ninja'd your way into what I consider to be one of the more socially responsible and reputable companies in the industry, especially down in Denver, it can be a little bit of a crazy rodeo down there. Transitioning from the East Coast, I'm going to assume you had limited experience in cannabis. How did you box out and stand apart when you were getting your position as a leader? You are now considered to be one of the leaders in the industry. How did you get there? What are 3 tips that you can share to help other people who are trying to make that same transition get there? Tell us your story.
I said it was easy, and I kind of shortchanged myself. So what I actually did, I grew up in New Jersey, but I was actually in Illinois just more recently and banking out there. But I just picked up and moved. I moved, I got out here. You kind of have to do that from the badge perspective. So you got to be in the badge system to be able to come into Colorado's staffing network. So that was a limitation, but I was able to find a job out here, kind of transition that way. I started as a sales rep for one of our kind of sub brands. So I also took a haircut and came in on the ground level and really had to show and demonstrate. Like, I've basically been talking about project management and our intranet and things like that ever since I was a sales rep, and just selling them on this idea that, yes, you do need a technical director. Yes, these things are important and they will drive the business, both by reducing costs and by finding efficiencies to drive revenue. IT's in the one really rare positions where it could do that simultaneously a lot of times.
Yeah.
And, you know, you look a year later and we are kind of cooking with gas on a lot of those different avenues. So it was a transition, it was a journey and a challenge, but we got there.
So the 3 tips that you can offer somebody else who's considering making the same transition.
3 tips would be: do not be afraid to put all your chips in the middle of the table. You kind of have to go all in if you're going to make this transition.
Ooh, a gamble, man. I like it.
Do it. Just jump in. It's going to be worth it. Stick with it. Be persistent. I actually talked to my previous HR director for a year before I got that sales rep job.
Wow.
So it does take persistence and network. I mean, that HR director was an Uber pickup when I was an Uber driver. That's how I met her. So you never know where you're going to make those connections. There's plenty of industry events. Definitely check those out.
Sure.
All right. So those are super money, by the way. I love that. It's just like, it's so real. The first thing I heard you say was, don't be afraid to take a lower position to get yourself into the place that you want to be in. It'll help you kind of understand what the foundation is, watch how things are being operated from the higher ups. And that way, when you get up to where you want to be, then you'll be able to contribute to all aspects of the business. The second thing I heard you say was persistence. Don't be afraid to go all in, and don't be afraid to be the squeaky wheel who will get the oil. You have to have the opportunity, and always looking for how you can improve the place that you're working in, the people that you're working for. And you know, I say create the conditions for success. How are you're either going to be a complainer or a contributor.
That's right.
Either way, you're making a contribution. Are you contributing to the negative outcome, or are you feeding what is possible? And that's something that I heard you say, which I absolutely love. And then the third thing is, don't underestimate the value of your network and get everybody's card.
Everybody. You know, I'd add one more to that, actually. Be realistic. You know, I think a lot of people are looking at this opportunity like, oh, I'm going to come over to the cannabis industry, make a bunch of money, smoke weed all day, and have very little to do. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. It's a very tough job. We're building an entire industry. You know, we're not just having fun here. And there's serious consequences to not getting this stuff right too. So take it very seriously and be realistic. The margins are tight. We have to convince these business owners that we're needed.
Right.
Yes, that's so true. I think there's a really big common misconception. And you guys, let me know for those of you who are tuned in here, I know I see a ton of you guys leaving comments talking about the medicinal benefits of the cannabis, and that's so incredible. I also see some of you guys posting questions, which we'll get to here in just a few minutes. If you're liking content, if you're liking this type of content, please go ahead and click the button in the description. We'll make sure to send you notifications when we are interviewing other amazing people like Daniel and featuring businesses like Good Meds. But I also wanted to just point out here that a lot of folks are being like, I wish I could work in the industry. I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. And let me just point out that it is precisely 1:30 Mountain Time in here. And you guys are on Facebook right now, probably ripping some kind of bong or smoking a pipe or a little hooter, starting your weekend off early. And me and Daniel are looking over here, and Nicole, we're looking over here being like, our night will end at precisely 9:45 tonight. After we're done selling the last, eighth to the last patient who's going to walk in here. And there's a lot, this industry has an incredible amount of commitment from people and is pushing us to the limits. So I think that that's really important to pay attention to, is that, and that's something that we talk quite a bit about it when it comes to the investment side of things, is you really have to look at this like a real business. There's this whole nostalgia around cannabis, thinking, just like you said, the stigma of, this is an easy way in. to make my marijuana millions, and I'm going to get to sit around and smoke Mary Jane all day, and it's going to be amazing. And you're absolutely right. I have never seen a group of people be so committed, so dedicated, so inspiring, just perseverant and willing to play all of their chips. And the other thing I love is that when you do reach out to somebody and you say, hey, I have this, how can we work with one another? It's a very welcoming industry to say, like, we know that one person's success is another person's win, and that we have to make that a win-win situation for everybody, because we are truly drawing the canvas of how this is going to go. I mean, sure. Colorado has set the stage for the rest of the country.
And I think people, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. I think people that are not in this industry for the true reasons, for with true intentions, and that's to help people. If you come into it because you want to help yourself or you want to help someone that you love, then that's okay. But if you're invested in this and you're sacrificing and you're making an effort to start a business in this type of climate where it's federally still illegal, I can't put my money in the bank, all of the the negatives that get thrown at you from trying to be, you have to be in it for your heart and for the sake of helping others. So I think the ones that are not in it with those true intentions kind of get weeded out. What do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, we're still in a country where that mentality is rewarded, though.
Yeah.
And I think that is the responsibility of not gatekeeping, but almost just being good stewards within the industry and
absolutely
calling it out kind of when you see it. I mean, look, I think there's going to be a place for the Philip Morrises when they want to mass produce green crack and sell it 20 joints in a pack of cigarettes, just like they sell cigarettes. It's fine. There's going to be a consumer for that.
Right.
But what we've got to watch and be mindful of and ensure stays around is the Sam Adams of the world, or the craft beer level of the world, right? Like everybody south of there, that's the small business creators or job creators.
Yeah.
That's a higher quality product, a more boutique product. So,
right.
Is it an 80-20 rule? I don't have all the answers, but all I know is that there's got to be a concerted effort to make sure that the market doesn't just run its course unfettered.
Yeah, I agree. So in the spirit of starting a business, regardless of what the storm looks like, there's people who are still packing their boats and ready to go out to sea. they're all gearing up in one way or another, at the very least, looking at this opportunity for either investment, whether they want to invest time or money, whether they want to invest current assets, or if they truly want to come in and be a cannapreneur or a hemp entrepreneur. Can you offer, just from your own personal experience and involvement in the role that you're playing in your company, from your perspective, what are 5 things that a new budding entrepreneur in the cannabis and hemp space should take into consider or should follow? 5 things that they should do, and maybe you want to give an example of each if they want to start a successful business.
Sure. This is a pretty well-defined recipe, right, out there in business thought. And there's actually a 20-point checklist that exists. I'll distill the 5 that I think are the most important out of that. So definitely having a mobilely optimized website. There's lots there that we could unpack, and we could talk 5 points, 10 points about just the web presence, right? Mobile optimization, pre-order. Are you getting your menu updated directly to it? Do you have other e-commerce? Because you could still make money selling shirts and t-shirts and stuff like that. Are you actively trying to rank for SEO? Website's huge. Getting your POS right. If you're in a retail setting, you've got rewards caked into the POS, you've got campaigns, coupons, product categorization, product attribution. All those things are huge just to get reporting right. When you're talking about trying to get retail, whether med or rec, to drive the production side of the house, if you're a full dispensary and grow, you've got to know what strains are selling the best. You've got to be able to comb through your POS data to identify the top selling flower, the top selling concentrate, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Basic Excel, SQL, and presentation skills. Once when you're getting all this stuff and you're distilling it and you're bringing it down it's got to be actionable. It's got to be able to be conveyed to your business leaders so they can actually do something with it. So being able to comb through with just an Excel CSV, that's fine. Be able to combine databases with SQL skills, but ultimately, however you get there, to be able to present these things. An intranet. You've heard me talk about it a couple times. It's my biggest thing. You don't need to be very techy to build a Google Sites intranet, and Google Forms gives you a lot. The tracking, the notifications, the instant kind of database that gets built out, all that stuff. Everything that we're talking about gets kind of centralized and housed within that intranet structure. So can't speak higher of that. But through all this, I'd say the number one is be yourself, because we can get very down in the weeds about, how to optimize web content or what kind of deal to put out there and all these kinds of things. But Google is looking out for consumers. They're wanting business leaders and small businesses to be able to put together websites that make sense for the consumer. So if you're doing things that you're being true to yourself, usually all these other things will get taken care of.
Man, so powerful. And
Yeah.
thank you for putting a heavy focus on the real stuff that you need. So many folks are coming at us with a very old or semi-archaic mentality around business, in the sense that they're like, awesome, I'm gonna open a grow and we're gonna get a license and we're gonna have a retail store. And you're really talking about something completely different, where regardless of whether you decide to open a retail store or a cultivation site, or even work directly with the plant, you're really talking about an ancillary business where one could leverage the internet, basic IT skills, bring more folks around them to sort of buffer the blow and the learning curve, and have a thriving business serving the cannabis space and consumer without necessarily having to deal with the plant. And I think that that's super powerful, how you focused on what kind of tech infrastructure in this day and age you have to have it. What kind of tech infrastructure are you building up to serve your business and to engage your customer? I like to teach three principles of business. Number one, to get customers. Number one is capture. Number two is connect. And number three is convert. You got to capture your audience, and you have a bigger chance of doing that on the internet with the proper IT in place.
Exactly.
Two is connecting with them. People do not buy products, they buy people. There's 400 stores in Denver. Why do you go back to the same one every single time? It's because you've made a connection with a product, with a person who's helped you select that product, with the company as a whole. It's all about the connection that you have. Why do you guys come back and watch us here? Because you have a connection with us. You know it's a trustworthy site, and we love having you here. And then the last one is, because you've established that trust, because you've established that relationship and connectivity, you can now make a selection and invest your time, or make a decision to make a purchase with that business. And that is like really the power, how to capture, connect, and convert people. And doing that virtually is the wave of the future. We are already seeing businesses, professional positions in businesses disappear because a robot can do it better and faster.
That's right.
More effectively.
That's right.
And Daniel, you're right at the helm of that right now, serving the cannabis community with your IT skills, your bank, like in all of these different areas. I think that's super, super powerful. And you guys should definitely, if you did not capture what he said, rewind this back and listen one more time, especially if you're going to be considering it, coming into this space, because what you can do with the internet nowadays is truly remarkable. And if you can leverage those skill sets inside of a new budding industry, you're going to have a unique selling proposition that a lot of folks don't have. And I think, Daniel, it's fair to say that that's kind of how you weaseled your way into leadership, or earned your position, a respected position of leadership, is
Absolutely
being able to speak to that. Are you millennial? How old are you? Can I ask that? Is that rude?
You're fine. I am millennial. Yep.
Yeah, millennial.
so,
Surprise?
No.
I had a question, Daniel, about how your interaction with the IT that you apply to Good Meds, what is the interaction with patients? And so how does that process work to help with the efficacy part of each individual strain or the plant, or, you know, the way that you're taking the medicine, whether it's through edibles and, you know, other ways and whatnot?
Totally. I'm in a very unique position right now. I actually, unmentioned so far in this conversation, I accepted an interim retail GM role. We just kind of had a little bit of a transition internally, and to the point about the central nature of IT and being an administrator, it was actually a natural transition.
Right.
Part of that, to answer your question, is we're looking at everything on the retail side right now. So potential of switching POSs. Well, that's going to affect everything, right?
Right.
Potential of bringing on some additional vendors. One that's pretty interesting is like a genetic testing that tells you more about how different terpene profiles affect you based on your specific genetic profile.
Wow. Okay.
Things like that. If you can be on the back of the house, but then on the front of the house as well, you can start to bring some of that, asking the patients in person. But a lot of it's pretty low hanging fruit. It is the website, it's the menus, various menus,
Right.
Maps, Leafly, Baker, and the pre-order is huge online.
So the patient would just go to the website and leave comments on like maybe how the plant affects them in different ways. Is that kind of how we're gathering that type of information?
A lot of that is actually, we might do direct customer surveys or just anecdotal kind of collection of that in person.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Cool. I know that there are plenty of patients that would love, including myself, that would love to just be a part of the research and how that works. And so that's why I'm asking for those that are out there that know that they medicate, and without the medicine, the different life, the quality of life that they would have. And so I feel like, all of us being the guinea pigs in this space right now, it's helpful to encourage patients to look, once you take this medicine, write a note, keep a medicine journal, let us know how it makes you feel. And so, for you tech people out there, I think an app that could help people when they medicate to remember to either record a video, something that helps us to capture what the medicine does to them in that moment when it hits their bloodstream.
You're totally right. I mean, the science is so early on it, and it affects everybody so differently. And we're in an odd position because we can't necessarily say, the recommendation, but
right.
Like you say, this indica, this might affect somebody more like a sativa. So
Exactly.
then where do you go with that? And I think you're dead on with the logging and the journaling of your individual experience. I think this is also where Leafly is leading the charge with their strain-specific marketing and those strain-specific pages. They're doing a really good job of building that out. And that's why we're partners with them, and we really like the direction of that company.
Oh, good.
Sweet. Yeah, we've done a lot of focus there, taking inspiration from Leafly and then just allowing for a lot more customer interaction. We've built out disease-specific uses for cannabis, disease-specific uses for CBD, getting down into the strain reviews. We have another amazing content contributor here who every Tuesday we have Token Tuesday, and she does strain reviews. So it's really about empowering the consumer with buffers on either side. We can never make claims, but really just sharing a general picture to say, this is how this has worked generally. This is what the reputation that it has. Here's what you can expect, but pay attention to how this thing is affecting you so that you can monitor and manage what you're putting in your body and how it's ultimately, you want to do the same thing when you're starting a pharmaceutical medication. So if you are truly using cannabis for medicinal purposes, that is a practice that you definitely want to adopt. I'm really interested to know, especially from the millennial perspective. I don't know if I'm considered a millennial. I'm 33. Like, Am I still
I think
young?
you're just out of the, I think you're just out.
You're right there. You're on the cusp.
Oh, I'm on the cusp of cool. All right, Daniel. Well, since you're still a millennial, why don't you share some wisdom from your demographic? What is I have a lot of life lesson quotes, or something that just when I'm up against a challenge, or when I want to share a piece of wisdom with somebody to inspire, motivate, or move them. I have all of these little things that I go back to. What's a life lesson quote that you lean on, and how has it played a role in your life?
Sure. There's a quote by Harry Haskins. Discontent is the mark of ambition. And I think I'll just speak for myself. I won't speak for my generation. I wouldn't ever dare try to do that. But, it's hard nowadays, right? It's hard just to kind of get by, be content day to day, kind of find some semblance of peace in your life. That we've got a lot going on in the world, a lot going on in this country. And discontent, though, I think when you see it as being a mark of ambition, it changes kind of the tenor a little bit, the temperature of that. So whereas you might have seen it as, oh, God, I need to be walking around and happy all the time. I feel like most of my generation feels like that. They all want to be famous and happy and rich. And everybody can't be famous, happy, and rich all the time. And so I think if you're okay with that and realistic and understanding, discontent makes a little bit more sense.
I agree. For sure. It's okay sometimes to fail almost. That's how we learn. The scars make us stronger and build character. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned that everybody wants to be rich, famous, and everybody can be that. Just like, I get a lot of people asking me when they're coming into this industry or being introduced to it, where do I start? I want to grow weed. And it's like, okay, slow down. Everybody can't grow weed because that's just not the way it's set up right now. Ideally, I think everybody should know how to grow it, just like you know how to learn how to grow your own vegetables and whatnot. It should be something that we are teaching in schools. But for now, when you're talking about getting into it in a business, from a business aspect, think about all of the other ancillary businesses. That's your key to becoming a millionaire and an entrepreneur in this industry. Don't look at what everybody's trying to do. Kind of look at what the problems are and fixing those problems, and then you have yourself a business, right?
Yeah. Don't shy away from the challenges. They're going to be there.
That's right.
No.
That's right.
Daniel, any last words? It's been such a pleasure to hear you and to get to know you. I'm excited to come check you guys out down in Good Meds. Are you at the South Denver location?
I'm at the Grow, but bop around to both the stores. Definitely come in for a tour next time you're in Denver.
Yeah, I would love to. I always do a feature when I pop into different dispensaries, help me pick my weed. So I'd love to come in and showcase what you guys have going on and let our audience decide. Let me know if you guys in the comments, if you'd be excited to help me pick my weed at Good Meds. Next time I'm down in Denver, I'd love to just hit you up and pop in and check it out.
Let's do it.
And I posted, everybody, for those of you who are tuned in, I posted the link where you can follow on linkedin.com/in Daniel Weiss. I posted the link inside of the comments. You guys can follow Daniel on LinkedIn, check out to see what he's doing. And also, is there a Good Meds link that you want us to check out on the web?
Sure. We got goodmeds.com and then my personal site, cannatechnica.com. So if you interested in any help, feel free to reach out for sure.
Sounds great.
Awesome. We have our moderators, and a big shout out to our moderators, Sharon, Bridget, I see Donna, Patrick. Thank you guys so much for being on here. I know there's about 15 of you. I'm not going to mention everybody, but thank you so much for all of your help making sure that the links are up and that we can see where we can follow, what the websites we can check out, all of that stuff. You guys are an amazing support system in cultivating a safe environment that is fun to learn on. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Nicole, and also Daniel. I'm moved and extremely inspired by our interview and also the work that you're doing in the industry and just getting to know more folks who are pioneering this thing. They say that the pioneers have the most arrows in their back. So a brave soul that you are. Thanks for being on the battlefield with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And we'll share this link with you so that you can share it out to your network as well. You guys, this was another bonus broadcast of Legalize It, Don't Criticize It, the place to be for cannabis and hemp CBD. Make sure that you guys click the link in the description if you want to get more notifications from us when we're doing interviews like this with Daniel and other entrepreneurs who are pioneering this industry forward. I'm your host, Sonia Gomez,
co-host Nicole Fong.
And this was our guest, Daniel Weiss from Good Meds. Thanks so much for being here with us. Have a great and very safe weekend, you guys, and we'll see you on our next show. Thanks so much.